When someone gets under your skin in 3 sentences or less, do you actually know what just happened to you? You probably think it was a bad moment, a rough comment, someone catching you off guard. But behind that small reaction, something much bigger is happening, and most people miss it. Your emotional state was just borrowed, without your permission, by a person who may not even know they did it. And if you don't see the mechanism, you will spend your life thinking you are sensitive, when really, you are trained. The Stoics figured this out almost 2,000 years ago. They built 7 rules to make a person impossible to shake, not cold, not detached, just immovable from the inside. Stay until Rule 7 because that is the one that explains why some people, once you stop reacting to them, suddenly start chasing you. Let's start with Rule 1. Rule 1. Stop trying to put out fires. You didn't start. So why does someone get shaken when another person criticizes them, ignores them, or acts cold? Most people assume the answer is simple. They are sensitive. They care too much. End of story. But here's the thing. That explanation is wrong. And it is wrong on purpose. It blames the victim of the reaction instead of looking at the mechanism. You don't get shaken because you are weak. You get shaken because somewhere along the way, you were trained to treat other people's moods like fire alarms. A small change in their tone, and your nervous system goes into emergency mode. You start scanning. You start fixing. That is not weakness. That is conditioning. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this in his private notes. He kept reminding himself that outside events do not have the power to disturb us. Our judgments about them do. The criticism is just sound waves. The cold look is just facial muscles. Your mind is what turns them into a wound. And by the way, if someone you have always pleased suddenly makes you feel like you cannot do anything right, do not brush it off. We will get into what that means at the end. Rule 2. Their opinion lives in their head, not in yours. Have you ever noticed how a single comment can replay in your head for 3 days, while 100 kind words slide off you in an hour? That is not random. Behavioral researchers call it negativity bias. Your brain is wired to give threats more weight than rewards. It cannot tell the difference between a tiger in the grass and a coworker rolling their eyes. Here's what most people don't realize. When someone forms an opinion of you, that opinion exists entirely inside their skull. It does not climb out of their mouth and attach to your face. It does not enter your bank account, your relationships, or your future. It stays where it was born. The only way it ever reaches you is if you carry it across the room and place it on yourself. Epictetus, who spent years as a slave before becoming one of the most respected teachers in Rome, was direct about this. Other people's judgments belong to them. They are not yours to manage. The moment you accept that, something quiet shifts inside you. You stop running across the room to pick up opinions that were never meant to be in your hands. This is why a single criticism from someone you barely respect can still ruin your week. Not because it was true, because you picked it up. Rule 3. The siege mentality of quiet power. Ever wonder why the most powerful people you have ever observed almost never explain themselves? Maybe it's the executive who walks in and says nothing for 10 minutes and somehow controls the meeting. Maybe it's the friend who stopped defending themselves and got more respect, not less. Maybe it's the older relative who looks at someone making a scene and the scene quietly dies. That pattern is strategic. And it has a name. I call it the siege mentality. The Stoics did not invent the phrase, but they lived the principle. A siege only works on a city that opens its gates to argue. A city that stays clothed and supplied from within and not be broken. Most people lose their power the moment they answer a provocation. They explain, they justify, they prove, and in proving, they show the attacker exactly where the door is. Marcus Aurelius taught himself to picture a rocky cliff that the waves crash against. The waves rage. The cliff does not negotiate with water. Machiavelli noticed something related. People judge each other almost entirely by appearances, and a calm exterior under attack reads as authority, even when the calm person has none. So watch how powerful people use this. If they pause before responding, they are choosing their frame. If they hold eye contact and say nothing, they are forcing you to fill the silence and reveal yourself. If they answer a hostile question with a question, they are refusing the trap entirely. And hey, if this is making you see your past reactions in a different light, smash that like button and subscribe. It helps us reach more people who actually care about understanding the psychology behind everyday life. Rule 4. Know which arrow is being shot at you. Not every emotional shot fired at you is the same shot. They look the same on the surface, but underneath, they are doing 4 very different things. If you cannot tell them apart, you cannot block them. The first type is the guilt arrow. Someone reminds you of everything they have done for you, right before asking for something you would normally refuse. They frame your no as ingratitude. Marcus Aurelius warned about letting another person's view of you become your own conscience. Guilt manipulation works because it borrows your own moral code and turns it back on you like a stolen key. The second is the flattery arrow. Constant, intense praise that quietly creates dependency. Epictetus pointed out that if your confidence is built on what others say about you, it will collapse the second they stop saying it. Flattery feels like being filled. It is actually being hollowed out. The third is the fear arrow. Not loud threats, quiet ones. You will regret this. Nobody else will tolerate you. Good luck out there. Seneca was clear about fear. The person who can scare you has already made you smaller. Because fear rearranges your priorities before you have even chosen them. The fourth is the cold arrow. And this one is the most powerful, which is why I saved it for last. The sudden silence. The withdrawal, the person who was warm yesterday, unreachable today, then warm again the day after. Behavioral psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism that makes slot machines so addictive. Reward, then nothing. Reward, then nothing. The unpredictable schedule trains your brain to chase the reward harder. People who run this pattern are the hardest to walk away from. The guilt user wants compliance. The flatterer wants supply. The fear user wants control. The cold user wants you to never feel safe enough to leave. Rule 5. Notice the edit before it becomes your personality. Have you ever noticed that you start behaving differently around certain people? You speak more carefully. You rehearse what you want to say before you say it. You check their face before committing to your own opinion. You soften the wins, hide the bad days, and route every sentence through a quick mental filter that asks, will this set them off? That is not personality. That is a behavioral edit. And here is the part most people miss. Once an edit has been running long enough, it stops feeling like an edit. It starts feeling like you. Epictetus taught that we are disturbed not by things, but by our judgments about things. The person did not change your world. They changed the rules you set for yourself in their presence. Once those rules became automatic, your behavior shifted. Once it shifted, it felt normal. Once it felt normal, you forgot what you used to be like before. Researchers studying long-term coercive control found that prolonged exposure to a manipulative pattern actually changes how the affected person makes decisions. They stop asking what they want. They start asking what will keep the peace. Think about that for a second. Your entire personality, the one you spent years building, gets quietly rewritten because one person trained you to walk on glass. Rule 6. They already know where you break. Ever had a hard week and noticed that someone in your life turned up the pressure right when you needed quiet the most? That is not a coincidence. They knew something was off before you said a single word. People who shake other people are not random. They are observers. They watch. They notice the topics that make your voice flatten. They notice the name that makes you go quiet. They notice the tone that makes you back down. They are not reading your biography. They are reading your baseline. And here's where it gets even deeper. The longer someone has had access to you, the more accurate their map becomes. Every conversation was a data point. Every time you flinched, they learned. Some of them are not even doing it on purpose. They learned this style as children. watching the adults in their lives operate this way. But the effect on you is the same regardless of motive. The Stoic answer is not to become unreadable. It is to stop announcing your weak points to people who have not earned the right to know them. You are allowed to feel everything. You are not required to display everything. They notice. Rule 7. The reversal. Why going untouchable makes them chase. What does it mean when someone who used to dictate your moods suddenly starts trying to win you back? This is what I mentioned earlier, and it is the part of the Stoic playbook almost nobody is ready for. When you actually apply the first 6 rules, something strange happens to the people who used to shake you. They notice before you do. They react in one of 3 ways. Sometimes the reason is escalation. They turn the volume up because the old tactics stopped working, and they need to find your new threshold. Treat that as confirmation, not a reason to fold. Other times the reason is need. They suddenly act warmer because the supply they were drawing from you got cut off. And sometimes the reason is the most damaging of all. It is cyclical. They come close, retreat, come close, retreat, running the same intermittent reinforcement loop that hooked you in the first place. Seneca taught that the wise person does not just survive difficulty. They expect it ahead of time, without fear, because they have already prepared themselves on the inside. That preparation is not a wall, it is clarity. You do not become untouchable by closing yourself off. You become untouchable by no longer needing the outcome to go a certain way. And that is what breaks every manipulation tactic at its root. Guilt only works if you need their forgiveness. Flattery only works if you need their praise. Fear only works if you believe their threat. Cold only works if you ache for the warmth to come back. When you genuinely need none of those things, because you have replaced the need with something internal, there is nothing left to aim at. The rock does not fight the wave. It does not explain itself to the wave. It does not soften its edges to please the wave. It simply stands, and after enough time, the wave moves on. Because that reaction they used to pull out of you, it was never accidental to them. And it should not be accidental to you either. If this changed how you see the people around you, hit subscribe. This is the work we do here every week. Cold psychology, stoic clarity, the tools to walk through a noisy world without losing yourself. And if you want to see the exact patterns these people use to study you, watch the next video on screen now.